Nope. Welcome to We the People, by the people, for all the people. We always like to say thank you so much for spending your Friday afternoon with us. I see a few names that I haven't seen before and a few that I haven't seen in a while. So it's so great to have you all here on the call. Um, our mission with this group is for families to connect with their local legislators, share your personal story so that we can create positive change for our upcoming legislative session, which starts in 2 weeks. March 4th is the beginning of session, and there is a lot going on. So I'm going to go ahead and let Tom let us know where we're going first with today. Where do we want to start with upcoming
Oh, that
things?
was a nice handoff. I like
You're
that. That was
welcome.
very
Yeah,
good.
you got it.
So I think a couple of things that we can do. We can start with kind of highlighting some important things that have happened. We started talking about the conversations that are happening, the climate in the Capitol around the attention to APD, the med waiver, the program. And I think one of the places would be to start was, Alan, why don't you give us a little bit of a perspective of what you're kind of sensing around that environment on the Hill?
Um, you mean in Florida or in
In
DC?
Florida, not
Okay,
but
okay.
Florida is
Sure.
what we
I
have.
think I think that what you've been doing in delegation meetings and last year's carrying over to this year, it seems like, a smaller program as we are of 55,000 people, we're taking all the oxygen out of the air up there. Every meeting they're talking about us, they're having panels, more to come. Margaret did a great job the other day, and so did Melissa. I know they're going to do a family panel. I can't wait to see Stephanie up there. They're really focused on it. They want to help, and I think that they want accountability because they know they're giving a lot of resources, and they're not seeing, even the discussion about, we, we did this bill to really help things, and people in crisis didn't even get to the top of the list for being able to identify them to help them with services. So they can't even trigger the 15 days with the application. So I feel good about it. I feel good about it with regard to Medicaid unwind. I think there's going to be some language. You saw there was some language on Medicaid unwind for a new pilot for pregnant women, and we're shopping the language. I think it's going to be taken up somewhere. The report came in for how they bill ADT. So there's just a lot happening, and every committee that touches us is having hearings on something that we're interested in, and that's good news.
So
I
with that in mind, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I
And
put some of the links in the chat to a recent committee meeting. If any of the families haven't watched these, this was I think 2 days ago. And the APD is like at the top of the meeting, so it's not hard to get to. Inspiring hope that our legislators are taking a serious dive into some of the gaps in these programs. And one of them, I forgot his name, I like him a lot, but he said, there's no doubt about this population. This population,
Shame.
everybody on all sides of the legislature know that this population needs help, they need funding, and they need better policies, and we're going to do that. So just as an example, you can see all these meetings that are happening. You don't have to be with Alan in the Hill. You can actually watch on your computer or your phone or your television at that Florida channel link. And then one more,
So,
I know Alan had a little bit more, and I want to make sure Doug is here this week. So,
mhm,
okay.
no problem. I just wanted to go back on. So one of the things that has become a realization through the family stories is when the 15-day crises thing was passed last year, I think the assumption was after 15 days, the decision was made and help would arrive. And it turned out that it said, yeah, 15 days for us to determine it's a crisis. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean we have to serve them. It just means, yep, it's a crisis. That sure is a crisis. And so the process now has really to do with, let's connect the intent of the legislature to the requirements of the language. And I think those refinements over this year there's so much attention, and I think the value of the stories and the connections and the faces at all the delegation meetings have really personalized government in a way that maybe in a lot of other programs it's not seen that way. But when you see the human face, and it does seem to generate a degree of empathy and engagement and genuine willingness to try to help. So the good news is, as we also bring solutions, specific steps of how to streamline. And so we're working on using a current case model as here's what the process looks like right now for in a crisis, how long it really actually takes for a dollar to arrive. And those can help legislatively convert. So Alan, you had some more?
I was going to send to Stephanie, maybe she could share it, not only all the bills, but the AI that defines the bills and what's going to happen if they pass. Because there's a lot of bills, so I really can't talk about them all because it's too much. But
That's
I'll send
great.
that to you, and it's easy to understand because they bullet the issues.
What a
And so
beautiful statement. There's too much. There's too many bills about our people. How stinking cool. Okay. So Doug or Fino, if you wanna, I see your hand. I see your hand.
Yeah,
And I'm gonna let Doug go ahead.
I got a quick question to Alan. I just want to get an idea of what are you hearing about the pilot program? Where's it at? Is it working? Is it not working? Are they still, trying to figure it all out? I just want to get an idea of what you think and what's the update on that pilot program.
There was a really good presentation where FCC was there and APD was there and ACA was there. And I just actually sent it out to all the ARC chapters. I'll send it to you. You need to watch it. There's a lot of different things going on.
I mean, I was watching it, Alan, but
Mhm.
sometimes they start talking that language that really kind of goes over my head. They use XYZ and WXY. I don't know what all those things stand for. So I kind of, was listening to it, but it really wasn't able to catch up on what they're really talking about.
Here's what I'll say. The FCC, I'm really happy they're meeting with groups, and they'd meet with your group if you invited them. They'd come talk. They're meeting with JJ and Allison next week. They'll meet with everybody. They met with in Green Cove a couple days ago, but they're trying to be transparent, talk about what they're doing, and trying to figure out why some of the other managed care have bad reputations, but they believe they're going to do it differently. But we got to see what happens when the first report was nothing that came out. They issued the first report, but they really hadn't taken enough cases to compare it. But we'll see. I mean, I'm waiting to see how it plays out.
I know because, when you think of managed care, and I'm not talking about FCC per se, but just an overall managed care since it started and back in 2015, as of today, we still have problems. Claims being denied, and that's not, an authorization is not a guarantee of payment, and you kind of hear all these stories. So when you back that kind of issues that we run into as providers, I hope that it doesn't flow over into, because at the end of the day, these are a particular clients that need service. We can't be messing around with, well, I can't send you anything because my authorization hasn't been approved yet, and it was approved, but I got denied, so I can't send you your stuff. You start running into that kind of problems, and then it becomes a mess.
Well, I think the biggest problem they're having, Vino, is getting people referred to them from APD. It
Yeah.
seems like it's a very slow process, and there's QSIs that are a holdup. There's Medicaid eligibility.
But you see,
And
all those problems are going to carry over to the managed care. Right now, you have a WSC that's handling that kind of stuff. Who's going to handle that stuff when it carries over to managed care? You
Well,
know, that's the $1 million question. Because right now, at least the family's got somebody to go to say, you know, I need help. What do you do? Once you enroll in managed care, who's going to be that person that's going to say, oh, don't worry, we'll help you with your Medicaid issues?
It's supposed to include case management, but the issue becomes there is a challenge with the authorized amount of services versus the actual amount
I
of
think
actually
that-
received.
I
And
think
so-
what Margaret was saying, though, is they're having a difficult time getting participants to the managed care pilot from APD. So
That's quite understandable. I mean, if you look at the, Fina was saying, if you look at the other managed care programs, that doesn't look very good to want to jump onto this pilot.
Exactly.
And
That's
so
exactly
part
my
of
point.
that's what you were
exactly my
saying,
point.
right? And so the bottom line still is there still needs, like I know that in working in managed care, the LTC, the long-term care side of that, being able to actually get a utilization report. This is how many hours were authorized, this is how many we actually delivered, is a near impossibility. Yeah,
Right.
I think that should be a performance measure that is both transparent and readily available, because that's where the challenge is the state contracts out and that contract contracts out, and the accountability and record keeping kind of gets lost there.
And Tom, I'll be honest with you, you know, I've been doing this for a very long time. Not that it happens often, but I will get a call from a WSC on a Saturday afternoon because she's running into a problem. I really doubt it. I'm going to get a case manager from a managed care calling me on a Saturday afternoon if there's an issue. They're going to say, here's your 800 number, call them, or I'll call you on Monday.
Please hold.
That's where I feel the ball might be dropped, because, you know, I get calls, you know, on the weekends at night, you know, hey, you know, I ran into a problem. Yeah, don't worry, we'll take care of it, because that WSC is always on call. I don't know if that's going to work the same on the mat. And I'm not throwing managed care under the bus here. I'm just telling you my experience that I've had through the years. You know,
But Fino, what you're also talking about
after 5 o'clock, and the message is call the emergency 800 number, or leave me a message and I'll call you tomorrow.
But what we're talking about, Fino, really is an issue that's been consistent on this call with Melissa and Alan and everybody, is provider capacity. And one of the things that limits provider capacity is how streamlined the business is. If you're spending as much time as Melissa is trying to do the support coordination, or you're trying to do chasing down reimbursements or authorizations and all those types of things, it prevents and discourages the engagement. And as we're trying to grow this program, one of the big challenges is keeping providers engaged. So your insights are very critical in the communication as well, Vino, because you bring the business elements of capacity to the table, and I'm grateful for it. And you know, I hope your voice is heard.
These are my concerns because I've experienced them, and I just want to make sure they're out there, that, you know, my questions get answered, because we're going to run into a major problem. And, you know, when you're dealing with a national company, everybody's a number. When you're dealing with a local patient, I know Mrs. Jones, I know Miss Gonzalez, you know, we speak to her on a daily basis. And if this gets to a point where it's just very hard for the local provider to service someone, there's not going to be no more local providers. There's going to be one company based out of Texas somewhere, and that's it. That's what's going to happen, because it just gets too difficult for a local provider to be able to handle.
This
all
is
the-
Melissa. This is
you know,
Melissa. I
red
want to
tape.
say something really quick because I have to dip out, but I really would like Doug to get on. But one of the things really quick though, I'm pushing this $50 million that was put up last year to help with provider expansion, to help with getting better providers, the day programs getting better staff or more staff so that we can help get more people off of the wait list. The $50 million that was a part of the Jobs Protection Act, the money is still there. We've verified it. It will be open. Particular providers, it has to be some guardrails on it, which, we can figure out, but we should all be behind that. But Doug came on, and I would like for him to be able to, say a couple of things, especially to the families and stuff who are on here. So if he could jump in, because
Yeah,
Thanks, Melissa.
I'm here. Can everybody,
I was gonna go as,
can I
Doug.
be heard?
Yes.
Yes,
Can
Doug,
everybody
welcome.
hear me?
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate y'all let me have the opportunity to talk. I appreciate all the discussion because it's helped me become a little bit better oriented to some of the frustrations you have. I want to back up and just talk about the deciders, the people that we need to help us. They're generally frustrated about APD and that program. And it comes from a history that APD has of overspending its budget consistently and that goes back 8 and 10 years ago. And that's about how long I've been involved with the association. To most recently, they're not spending the money that is appropriated. It's a very, very, from their side of the table, difficult and complex program. It is for me to understand. It's just a complex program. So it doesn't lend itself to quick study. It doesn't lend itself to soundbite. And that is pretty much their world of decision making. What y'all have done in the last couple of years in going, particularly down in Southwest Florida, to the delegation hearings and showing up and beginning to help educate some people who have become actually very key people in the legislature to your frustration on your side of the table. They see that they realize, recognize the importance of the program. They see that there are, I think the number's 23,000 people on what used to be called the wait list down for pre-application. It's almost 25,000 people that aren't getting services of their citizens, their constituents. And they're frustrated by it. They want to know what they can do to help us. What do they need to do to straighten this thing out? Melissa and I went to, first of all, they were talking about taking a good number of people off the wait list last year. They appropriated $39 million for that purpose, provision of services under the waiver program. Melissa testified every time that issue was heard in committee, 5 times, twice in the Senate, 3 times in the House, that if they didn't do something about providing service providers, that money was not going to be spent. And so we went to the budget chair in the Senate, who explained the difficulty of providing services if you don't have service providers, and more specifically, why there are not more support coordinators coming on board, which is a technical issue relating back to legislation passed 5 years ago. He understood it. He got a staff in there, and what came out of that was what Melissa referred to just a moment ago, $50 million that he told us. He said, we're kind of late during the session to do this, but I'm going to try. So in the first meeting of the budget conference committee at the end of the session, he put $50 million in there to resolve that issue. it was probably too much money too late in the process for the House to go to take it. There was some issue that I think some of the staff in the House pointed out to us with retention. This money was not intended and not needed for retention. We needed to put providers in place. The compensation structure is there if you have the service providers. So it didn't get done. So that's, the combination of the interest you all have gotten particularly in the southwest part of the state, and the discussions we're having, and that language being there, that money being there. We have, as Melissa said, we have reconfirmed that the money's still there. So it's a good starting point. And we're having those conversations. We have had the last week, Melissa was in Tallahassee. We had 2 legislators tell us, one, and she's got a follow-up meeting. I want you to come down and spend an hour and a half with me so I understand this program. She's the chairman of the committee. And another very key person on the committee said, anytime you come to Tallahassee, I want you to come see me. So we got some really good momentum. But what we need are the families to show up. The interest that Alan mentioned, that the delegations where we've appeared, they want to help this population. They want to help you, but be honest with you, they don't know what to do. APD, and I hate to be critical of anybody because it'll probably come back to me, but APD does a terrible job of advocating for the program. How can they sit there and put on their website that all these services are critically needed and not articulate that when they present to the legislature? They do not. So it becomes incumbent upon us to say, hey, we need service providers out here. I wish there was a way that we could get all of those 22,000 people to show up. 22,000 people that aren't getting services. They have no voice.
Doug, can I ask you a quick question?
Yes, sir.
Doug, this is Tom Nurse. When we look at the history of Agency for Persons with Disabilities, and even before that, the gap between the available funds and those on the wait list created a real internal conflict between trying to manage preventing spending enough on those that have it so you could address some of those that are waiting. And that has created a culture in there, along with, then, as you said, the historical overspending, because they were in fact trying to meet medical necessity rather than a managed program. That has created a culture of deny, delay, and discourage rather than we care. And that's what I think is being heard. So the part of the challenge is that wait list, that unfunded, that conflict creates a real cultural challenge. How do you suggest that is communicated?
Well, they keep saying they have plenty of money these days. The state is flush. You can't provide the services if you don't have the money. If there is if there is some need to bifurcate medical needs, and I don't know how you do it, from care needs, maybe that needs to be looked at, but people have to be educated to understand the problem. But you have to identify the problem before you can solve it. And the committee members, the legislators, they're not well enough oriented to the program to ask the questions that you all were talking about before I started talking here. So you've got to show up. You got to have the family show up. I think it needs to be more than JJ and his mom, and they've done a great job. But if more people don't show up, they'll think it's maybe an isolated situation. People, y'all have to, and I forgive my language, But as I've told Melissa, you need to create a shitstorm. You need to show up and get attention.
But we plan on showing up on DD Day, and we plan on being able to build a model where we can help assist people to be able to show up for hearings and be able to testify and make that presence and be more strategic than just a group hug on DD Day, but to have more of a presence in those important hearings and to be able to do that. And one of the things that becomes so important to us as families is to filter down complex legislative language and actions into bullet points that are understandable for us to be able to communicate.
Yeah.
Because again,
you need to be unified in message. It needs to be prioritized. It cannot be a very deep list. You're only talking one or two issues, so you have to agree on what the main thing you want to get done in this particular session. You can move on to the third or fourth in the following year when you take care of the first two, but you can't just throw a bunch of stuff against the wall and expect anything to happen.
What we're talking about though, Doug, is until the culture can change. That's the way it's been for now decades of deny, delay, discourage.
Well, I think that's, and I think that I've kind of point out sometimes to people that one of the major problems of our form of government is the lack of continuity, particularly now that we have term limits and whatnot.
Yep.
You just lose this. You steadily lose orientation and institutional knowledge. So it becomes necessary for you all to create an institutional knowledge. And if you show up and you show up consistently, you're going to have an opportunity to highlight issues that need to be addressed. And culture change, I don't care what silo you're talking about, it's always very difficult to amend. So, but it can be done.
I think it can too. And one of the things we're trying to do as this layman group of families is kind of organize how we're going to get people up to Tallahassee, who wants to go and who, and how we can do that where we all have busy lives, where it makes sense. So one of the things that I put in the chat, I put a bunch of links. I've been working on this morning. Is we created a sign up genius for DD Day. And really that's just if you are coming or would like to come, if you could put your information in there, that way we can make sure that we're organized and give you the information. That's March 11th, and that's hosted by the Florida Developmental Disability Council. They were gracious enough to offer us a table, and we're talking with House representatives to try to get a meeting room like we got last year. And we'll have more information as we gather, but we really need to know who can come on March 11th. And then I think what Doug was getting into is that session starts March 5th, and these hearings are going to be going for the 60 days. So as he was talking about that, I think I'd like to do another sign up genius for the hearings that come up. If you'd be willing to go to Tallahassee, if we can figure out a way to get you there, that's something we're on the back end. We're trying to figure out how to coordinate that. We'll do that as well. But Developmental Disability Awareness Day last year was so magical. Like in a lot of instances, this is where we all met for the first time. And being able to amplify our voices together, tackle these appointments. We do have a couple set up. I'm waiting on the room, but these legislators said that they'll come to us, like just like they did last year. And I think that'll make it a lot easier if you've never gone to a representative. Certainly, if you haven't gone to Tallahassee, there's no better group to go with you. We have families. I think Tom's been over 100 times. You know, I'm on 3, so I'm not going to get lost like I did year 1. But there is so much more than just getting in there and spending time with the legislators. This is a way for us to kind of get there together. I think Nicole, Amanda, someone else with me. We all went into Randy Fine's office last year, and what I would have got tripped up in the first 5 seconds, Nicole was able to talk about, because he is her legislator, and going as a group, sometimes like that made a big difference for our conversation. And so I really want to encourage all of you to not only sign up if you want to go, put in the comments anything that that you need, so we can try to work that out. We'll do our very best. And then, like Doug was saying, it's not just DD Day. That's one day, but there are these hearings that come up, and if we're able to get to Tallahassee and make those comments, it can change a lot. It can change a lot. So Doug, is there anything else you want to kind of depart to families on what?
No, I appreciate that organizational effort. It's very important to have that kind of support. And the other thing I was thinking, if you're a larger group, it takes a lot of people to make an impact. But the one thing about when you all come to town, it's noteworthy. One, because you don't come very often, but because you obviously have people that need help, and it makes a real impact.
We'll put on the we'll be there, and we're going to put on the show. And one of the things about last year's DD Day that was so important was all the work that was done before we got there. All the delegation meetings, all the meetings with Senator Pasadoma, getting on the premier bill, being able to do that. And the exact same thing is happening there. We're not showing up on DD Day to be, have you seen us yet? This is really, hi, nice to meet you. We are there. And again, when it becomes a time to be impactful, do the hearings. Watching Margaret the other day was powerful to hear her in a committee meeting, and what you shared, and being able to demonstrate your experience and the long history. And it seems like the DD Council is getting a whole lot more of a positive nod and recognition for the history of that organizations, and bravo for that. Margaret, do you have anything you want to share on top of what Doug was just talking about, or anything?
Well, I've been looking to see what else is going on that day on DD Day, and there's going to be the military, a state convention, emergency medical technicians, and a lot of vehicles. The Girl Scouts are going to be there, and it's Puerto Rico Day. So
Ooh, Puerto Rico Day. That
Good
didn't we?
music.
Oh, that was Miami Day.
and the and Developmental Disability Awareness Day is going to be on the second floor with exhibitors, and then we encourage people to share things with their local legislators, and then other legislators that are leading committees about issues that are important to you, like budget committees, for example.
Yeah, the Senate
So,
Health and Human Services meets that morning.
Yeah.
The Senate Health and Human Services Appropriations Subcommittee meets that morning.
That's a big one. And so we may be also looking at opportunities for some press engagement at some point. And, again, this is the second year. And I remember Alan saying over and over again last year, this is going to take multiple years. This is going to take multiple years, but the momentum is starting. And I think that it has continued. Doug brought up really important points. And, that's the day-to-day of how you make the sausage. So what's our next? What are the things about DD Day? And we will we'll share that again. There are a block of 10 rooms that's still being held in Tallahassee for anybody that's indicated. I think you're going to talk about the registration event thing you created, Stephanie. And with that, if you need a hotel room, there are some available. There is no currently yet any sponsorship that still has to be to see if there's going to be that happening or not.
Yep. And I put those links. I put that link in under DD Day and the Capitol March 11th. There's a sign up genius. I have never done these. So if you have any issues with them whatsoever, you can either send a message over in the Facebook group or send me an email and I'll try to work up some technical solutions. I think it's working because I registered and a couple other people did.
Is that the one that says sign up RSVP
That's it.
for DD
Yeah,
Day?
that's it.
Okay.
Hi, I'll get Representative Perez to come to the room when
Yeah,
you come in.
will. Thank you.
I
Thank
will.
you. Yeah, that would be incredible. I'm trying, you know what, Lily, we're looking for a room over a meeting room on the House. So I've reached out to my local representative, but since he, you got a direct ear to him. You know how we had last year, the Senate?
Yeah,
Yeah, if you could reach out, that would really be helpful.
I'm gonna go visit him on Tuesday, so
Perfect.
I'll see, I'll push for it.
Because with that room, we also got early access to the Capitol, so we were able to get in behind the scenes, drop off everything, and it made a big difference for our setup too.
Yes.
So
Doug, I
this-
have a question,
this-
if I may. For Doug, is he still with us?
Yeah, I am. I was just about to ask if I could leave, but that's fine. Go ahead.
It's a quick question. Doug, how worried should we be about the federal government cutting Medicaid? What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's a different problem for a different audience. I really think that's federal, and we can communicate with our local legislators, Congress people, and U.S. senators about that. But I don't think, again, talking about priorities and managing your time and your opportunities, that's the opportunity to talk with a legislator during these next 60 days. You need to talk about Florida.
Yes.
What can Florida do? Okay.
Yes, but I was asking more in a general, like, I'm freaking out, when I hear things, I freak out. So maybe I shouldn't freak out that much.
Well, there are an awful lot of people concerned about what we're thinking and what we're hearing they're interested in doing with Medicaid. So again, we need to express to the right people. I'm just saying that Tallahassee doesn't have that audience. It's the
right.
congressional
No, I was
delegation.
just asking you because you're around, everybody, you got the connections, and but I'm not going to speak to Representative Perez about the federal government or any one of them. I was just asking you.
Right.
Because I don't.
Well, Lily,
I freak out.
Yeah.
One of the things you can understand, Lily, is the communication of the stories, the needs. That's kind of a universal story, and then how the funding mechanisms and stuff work. Some of that is way out of our hands right now, but the truth of our families and the needs and the stories, that is consistent no matter what the audience is. And so I would encourage just to continue to share that.
Yes, I agree with you.
Thank you, Doug. I know you've got to run.
Thank you, Doug.
I do. Thank you very much for the opportunity to visit with you. Have a good weekend.
Please join anytime you can.
Anytime.
Thank you.
So speaking of the stories, we did a push for video stories to be submitted, and I think that just didn't land the way I was hoping it would. You're more than welcome to still submit your video stories if you would like. We will be showing those to legislators, just so you know. I did put out something on Facebook in our Facebook group today that if you are willing, we're trying to, when we go to DD Day, last year our visual was really powerful. So even something as simple as sending a picture of who you're advocating for, whether it's yourself or your child or your brother or your loved one, if you could put a message attached to that, man, that would really, really help our efforts. But I'm doing kind of a visual of the Heart to Help campaign that I want everyone who comes to DDA to be able to showcase the pictures of our families. So I have it where you can just send it to my email or in the Facebook group or however method, I'll get my phone number in there. I want to start putting this together because that was just it was something that I think really took us over the line last year. And this is a little bit of me, a little bit of us. I feel torn, so I haven't been like pushing hard, like, hey, send your pictures and send your videos. So right now I'm pushing hard. We want to make DD Day just as impactful as it was. So when it comes to your stories, this would be something we would be sharing with legislators. So whatever level you're comfortable sharing, we would really like to be able to help with that and move that message along for DD Day.
Don't they
And
say a
Stephanie,
picture
last
speaks
year we
1,000
talked
words?
about updating those stories or being able to do that. I
Yeah.
think one of the things that was impactful on our display was having that TV and people were just standing there looking at those stories. Would it be possible to reuse those and that if anybody had an update, otherwise for many people, the story remains pretty much the same a year later.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's a fabulous idea. But we do have a lot of new members and we do have a lot of stories, and there is a large group of our population that is unrepresented in those stories. Like I was really hoping we'd get a lot of waitlist stories. But the truth is it's really hard to be in the world of advocacy when you're just waiting. And I think a lot of people don't even know about our group. So, you know, let's get the word out there. If you have families that are on a wait list, that is
I tell people all the time about our group. Everywhere I'm at, public, the mall. I'm like, you don't even have to live. I tell everybody about our group.
you are like the best mouthpiece, like for real. Thank you.
No, I'm serious. I talk to anybody behind me. Now, Corey will be with me, so I don't know if I need to update, but of course, Corey will be with me. But it does make an impact. Don't they say our picture speaks 1,000 words or something like that? Showing our stories. Definitely.
It really does.
It's impactful, yeah.
So the other thing, I want to make sure that I open this up for, families to come in, ask questions or any comments. I have posted our Facebook group on our in the links there. If you're not in our Facebook group, this is a fabulous way to get into discussion when we're not on this 1 hour call. And then I have our YouTube page. These meetings, I think I did this in the beginning. We record these meetings because a lot of our families can't tune on at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's a hard ask for every single Friday. So we want to make sure people have access to what's going on, and that'll be on our YouTube channel. And then this other thing I tried this week is there's a lot of advocacy efforts going across the state, a lot of groups that, a lot of meetings happening, even our own meetings. And so I made a calendar. I just like Google calendared it. And I put instructions in this link over here. Ash, I hope that works. I also put it on the Facebook page. If you want to click on that, all the meetings that you want to can go straight into your own calendar. So whether you go or you don't go, you have the information there. And if there are any meetings that are coming up, I tried to do ARC meetings, I tried to do our meetings, I tried to do Family Care Council meetings so that everybody has an opportunity to go to as many advocacy things that are going on in the state and stay as plugged in as possible. But if you have any other dates, you can go ahead and email me. And then I have the DD Day and the Capitol information. Delegation meetings. So interestingly, we had this like sidebar in the beginning of session. They had some special sessions and had to move around some of our delegation meetings. Polk delegation is coming up, and you can click on the ARC has a really awesome, easy to follow delegation calendar there. We've got Charlotte County coming up, DeSoto County coming up. Palm Beach is actually happening right now. So delegation meetings are still happening, and which is a really little different for at least my history with this. But this is an opportunity. Our Senate President, Senator Ben Albritton, is going to be at DeSoto and Charlotte. I know that JJ and Allison are going to the Polk County one. Alan said earlier that there's going to be news at that Polk County one. This is another way for us to amplify our stories. So if you'd like to come, you can click on those links and and I even put it in our handy dandy for all the people calendar. And And then the other thing we talked about is we've had a lot of committee meetings. As session starts, there will be hearings, and all of that information is on the floridachannel.org. It's I did a specific link at the beginning of this call because I really would like for families to tune into at least that APD section. This is a subcommittee that's really taking a deep dive into what's happening with the agency, and they're asking all the right questions. And so these are really good things when you're talking to your local legislators to know what they know. And so that's a wrap for
Wait, I have
all
one.
my
May I
announcements.
I
One
just
second.
have one suggestion, maybe if anybody's interested. All the issues that everyone has with APD or, Medicaid, whatever issues we all have, is anybody interested in submitting them to you? And so that we can put all our minds together like Doug was talking about. So when we walk in, it's not just a ramble type of thing. It's more like addressing the issues that everybody, I know somebody had issues with dentists, like things like that. I don't know if anybody's interested in, if you have issues with your coordinator, if you have issues with whatever, so that we can, have something intelligent to talk to them about, aside from, of course, the waiting list and what other else. I don't know.
There'll probably be Lily specific legislative bills that may be under consideration that we might be telling a story that helps support that bill. And that'll be some of the talking points that'll be kind of addressed, right? But that is kind of that happens at the last, pretty much at the last, based upon what's currently in the need. But you're absolutely right. The family stories continuing to be shared is important because the educated legislator can make a much, much better decision. And
Well, and I'm saying this because when I met with Danny, like Andres asked me, like, what do you think of APD? What do you think of Taylor Hatch? So my response, of course, was, don't ask me, my response quote was, you probably shouldn't be asking me that question. But then I, proceeded to respond. But things like that, yes, there are the bills. But if we're going to be meeting with them, we also like to tell them our story and the issues that we're having, that perhaps, it's not bill related, but they can actually, help hold APD accountable for such things.
We only have one more week before session, so I think that's a fabulous, like, kind of meeting focus for next Friday, is for us to talk about what are the bills that are coming forward, what talking points can we all unify around so that we're not squirreling them out of zone, and we stay focused and these things actually get accomplished this session. I thank you, Lily. I think that's a really good idea. I do want to go ahead and let everybody know we are going to meet again at 3:00 next Friday. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the recording so that you guys, if you have any questions or things you want to talk about, let's go there. We only have a few more minutes, and if we could do it hand raising style, so we got to go today at 4:00.